In this next case study, I would like us to understand what it entails to look at a project and assess it in connection with an investment that is to be made into the project. What do we need to look at? What are the important elements we need to focus on? And how do we assess if an investment is feasible or not? I have two films for you that actually were made, and I'm going to walk you through some of the investment assessment processes that we apply when we look at films and what we're focusing on in order to figure out if an investment is feasible or not. So this first movie that I would like you to take as an example, and I have changed some of the information just for confidentiality reasons, but I'd like you to look at a film called Asphalt City. The film was made, it was directed by Jean-Stéphane Sauveur, and it stars Sean Penn and Ty Sheridan, which you might have seen in Player Ready One, or Ready Player One for that matter. And I'd like us to look at what steps are needed to assess if an investment in this film would have been feasible. The film is being sold by Film Nation, which is a leading sales company in the marketplace. They are bankable and their numbers are bankable as well. So that's definitely someone to keep in mind if you ever work on a high concept or very strong art house movie, which is what they do. So let's focus on Asphalt City. And the first step we're going to take is we're going to look at the sales estimates, because that is the first thing I look at when I determine whether or not an investment is feasible. So for me, the main thing, like for a bank, is the international sales estimates, and I'm looking particularly at the take level. And in the ideal world, for this genre with cast like this, I want the take level to be 75% of the budget. So for Asphalt City, we see here that the international sales estimates on the take level are projected to run at $11,250,000, and the budget is $15 million. So that fulfills our first requirement of having sales estimates of 75% of the budget. The North American rights here were projected at $3 million, and in total, the worldwide distribution revenue gross is projected to generate $14,250,000 on the take, which is the worst case scenario. In the next step in our assessment process, I will look at the pre-sales. Have there been any pre-sales? For a movie like this, there should be pre-sales given the cast and the genre, and definitely in that budget range. I want to see at least 35% of the budget being pre-sold. So let's take a look at what exactly the pre-sales are that were made and who the pre-sales were made to. So we're looking at the sales estimates, and we're seeing here that pre-sales were made to Australia, United Kingdom, France, Benelux, Greece, Russia, Singapore. Altogether, 35% of the budget were indeed pre-sold. That is $5,250,000 of pre-sales that were made. And that leaves us with a take number of $7,950,000 that reflects the ROI, the ROW rights, which is the rest of the world. After these territories were removed because they were pre-sold, we are left with $7,950,000 in the international rights column to still sell. And that's what we're going to focus on in the next step. We're looking at the collateral value. So the next step consists of us understanding what pre-sales have been made, what is left, and particularly what is left to cover the investment that we are asked to provide. So is there enough after all the fees have been taken out, after everything has been paid, is there enough to cover the principal investment and premium? And that's the next step we want to find out. So I have to look at what sales have been conducted. I would like to apply all the fees in connection with those sales so that I can get a net number and can establish what my net revenues actually look like. So when we start out, we always put a valuation together, which are my projections. So in this case, the projected international take number was 75% of the budget. There was 75% of 15 million, which is why we get to 11,250,000. The US was known at 3 million, so altogether projections show me 14,250,000. So that's projections. But we're now going to turn into reality, and the reality begins with we're making pre-sales. So pre-sales were made to France, to Metropolitan Film Export, to Russia, Paradise, to Australia, Roadshow Film, to Singapore, Shore Organization, to Greece, Tiny Alliances, to the UK, Signature Entertainment, to the Searchers in Belgium. These are actual buyers who pre-bought the rights for the international and for their territory. Territories being, again, France, Russia, Australia, Singapore, Greece, the UK, and Belgium. So these territories were pre-sold. And altogether, the pre-sales that were generated were 5,250,000. The sales agent charged a reduced fee at 7.5% on these pre-sales. 7.5% in connection with 5,250,000 is 393,750. The sales agent charged what is called a marketing fee, that it's normally a budgeted fee that is in the budget, which basically is used to go to the markets, to do events for these buyers, to generate pre-sales, to generate awareness about the movie in the marketplace and do publicity. That's something that the sales agent often does. We put a marketing fee for that in the budget, and a fee at this level of the budget is normally around $150,000. So that's what you'll likely be paying for the sales agent to create a buzz around your movie and to generate pre-sales and generate sales. The next thing we know that is going to be deducted in connection with these pre-sales is, of course, the CAMA, the collection agent. We know that that is going to be something that will be deducted. We're also assuming that we have to pay residuals for the international. So we're paying the WGA, the Writers Guild of America, the DGA, the Directors Guild of America, and SAG, altogether residuals of 9.8% from these international rights. So altogether, we have to pay, again, sales fees, marketing, CAMA, and residuals, which leaves us with 4,139,250 as the net value in connection with these pre-sales. Now, after we've done the pre-sales, we have to figure out what rights can we still sell. The idea is not to take your international rights of 11,250,000 and just deduct the pre-sales of 5,250,000, because that number would not get you the right number. What you do is you go to your sales estimate sheet and you're going to look at what territories were sold. In this case, France, Russia, Australia, Singapore, Greece, the UK, and Belgium. You take those territories out of the sales sheet because they're no longer available. They're no longer part of your rights bucket. Once they are removed, you will see what rights are still left. Those are called ROW rights, standing for rest of the world, also unsold territories. And that number for the international market in our case is 7,950,000. Now we know we're going to have to pay the sales agent full fee, 12.5%. Collection agent will be paid 1%. So we're left with 6,876,750 in the net unsold rights value. So altogether, when we're adding the pre-sale net sales value and the rest of the world net sales value, we get to net revenues, so to speak, as a value of 11,016,000, and that is what we're looking at from the international marketplace. In addition, Vertical bought the movie for $3 million. Sales fee to get that deal done was 10%. The CAMA for the collection agent is 1%. So we're deducting the same fees here as well, which gets us to a net US revenue of $2,670,000. So if we're adding the net US pre-sales value to the net international value, we get to 13,686,000 in the net value of the worldwide rights. We understand what the collateral looks like after we have our pre-sales done. We're deducting all fees in connection with pre-sales. Then we're looking at what are the rest of the rights worth. What do I need to deduct from that in order to understand what I could be making? And then I need to compare this in this next step in connection with my investment and the premium to understand, is there enough available after all the fees have been deducted for me to recoup my premium investment and my investment and my premium. So that's really something we need to take a very close look at. Is there sufficient collateral to cover the principal investment amount and the premium in connection with the investment amount? That is going to be the next step. Once we've established the collateral value for the film, which is the net revenue value, we run it against the investment that we're asked to provide. And then the question we need to answer for any project that we're looking at is our investment feasible? And how much collateral is available to cover the investment and the premium? So we do this with every project. We look at what is the net rights value and can this cover the investment and premium? So let's take a look here. We have established before we are doing pre-sales to France, Russia, Australia, Singapore, Greece, UK, and Belgium for 5,250,000. After we're deducting all related fees, we end up with 4,139,250 from the international market in the pre-sale category. The rest of the world, which has 7,950,000 still to sell, is also going to be subject to a sales agency fee and the collection fee, leaving us with 6,876,750. So altogether, from pre-sales and international territories, we should be having 11,016,000 for that international side of this film. And then the US. I thought I had to sneeze, I didn't. All right, so the US with vertical for $3 million is subject to a sales fee for the US agent and of course the collection agent, leaving us with 2,670,000. So altogether again, we have 13,686,000. Now our investment ask is assumed to be 35% of the budget. That would be 5,250,000, and together with the premium of 1,050,000, which is 20% of that, we would have to have enough to cover 6,300,000. Question is the equity investment feasible for this film? How much collateral is available to cover the investment and premium? So let's take a look. Once we establish the collateral value and the finance elements, we then apply an investment assessment and we compare the total collateral that's available with the investment amount and the premium that is to be made and that is to be recouped. So this analysis leads us to either show excess collateral, in which case our investment and premium is covered by the collateral that's available on the film, or it would show us insufficient collateral in a case where the investment and premium cannot be covered by the collateral that's available. So in this case now, let's take a look. So we have the collateral value. We had the take of 11,250,000. We have pre-sales of 5,250,000 and a remaining take of 7,950,000. So let's look at what actually happened here in regards to the pre-sales and the finance elements and how they are being applied. So when we take the pre-sales, we do a pre-sale loan at 90%. So the pre-sales were 5,250,000. The pre-sale loan of 90% at the discount is 4,725,000. The down payment that was received in connection with the pre-sales of 5,250,000 is 20% of that. and that is $1,050,000. So as you've done before in your finance plans, you would deduct the down payment from the loan amount. So the loan amount gross for the pre-sales would be $3,675,000. The interest reserve for 2 years, 9% per year, gets us to 18%. 18% of $3,675,000 is $661,500 that's being deducted. So the net pre-sale loan in connection with these pre-sales would be $3,013,500. So let's take a look at the gap loan. The gap loan would be in connection with $7,950,000 that is left, the unsold rights. 50% of that normally would be $3,975,000. However, as we've learned, the bank will never take more than 20% of the budget into consideration for a gap loan. So 20% of $15 million is $3 million, which is why the $3 million is our gross gap loan here. The interest reserve for gap is higher, 12% per year, 24% altogether for 2 years. So that is going to give us a deduction of $720,000. Loan and legal fees in connection with that is $75,000. So we're getting a net gap loan of $2,205,500. No, that's not true. It's $2,205,000. Sorry. So altogether, the gap loan gross, including all these fees, is $6,675,000. So the collateral that the bank is using, the collateral that would be assigned to the bank as here is what we're keeping and here is what we're not going to let you touch, is $8,250,000. And how do we get to that number? The number consists of the pre-sale gross loan amount of $3,675,000 that needs to be repaid from the pre-sales, and the gap gross loan amount of $3 million. So the bank wants their collateral back. So they're basically looking at us and saying, we want that money for sure. But we need to look at what is the collateral that is backing that number. What is the collateral that backs the gross loan amount of $6,675,000 that I cannot get my hands on, potentially, as an investor? That number would consist of all the pre-sales that are assigned to the bank and the gap loan. So that is the pre-sales of $5,250,000 plus the gap loan of $300,000. So theoretically, I'm looking at that as that is not available for me. So if I take that out into consideration, of course, I need to think about what is available to me. What is actually the number that I, as the investor, could be looking at? Well, the remaining take number, right, was $7,950,000. That number was my available rights after the pre-sales. So that I know when, you know, everything is said and done is the number to start with. But then I need to deduct what the bank is taking away from that. From the $7,950,000, the gap loan will be paid from, and that gap loan was $3 million. So I'm looking at, okay, the pre-sales are gone, fine, they'll be used by the bank, but what is not used by the bank, at least in part, and that is the remaining take. So I'm looking at $7,950,000 to be sold still. From that, the bank is going to want $3 million. So what I'm left with is $4,950,000 that I look at as being the remaining collateral for the international marketplace. So we're looking at $4,950,000 as the remaining available collateral. Now, that number is obviously subject to sales fees and comma and residuals. So $4,950,000, I have to deduct $618,750 for the sales agent, $49,500 for the collection agent, and $485,100 for residuals. So my net value for that number is $3,796,650. So that's my net number that I look at as being available to me as a collateral. And then from the US, I do the same thing. I'm deducting the sales fee and I'm deducting the comma. Now for the US, the goal is always to assign the residuals to the distributor. So that's something we often do so that we don't have to pay as producers residual on the US territory. So if I am now going ahead and looking at the total collateral, I would add 3,796,650 to the US net collateral 2,670, and I would get 6,466,650 as the total collateral that's available. Remember, the investment amount and premium was 6,300,000, so that amount would theoretically be covered by the collateral that's available, and that would give me excess collateral, meaning more collateral than what I need, of 166,650. And that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for my investment and the premium to be covered and having some extra money available at the end. So if I would have looked at the film Asphalt City, you know, with Sean Penn and Ty Sheridan, and would have been asked, do you want to invest 35% of the budget in this film? I would have looked at what is the collateral that's available to me, and based on that, I would have said in the first instance, I could invest in this film, subject to, however, the final finance plan. We always look at the final finance plan in the end, because the collateral is one way of deciding, do we want to send out an LOI, do we want to send out a letter of interest to finance this film? And that is always driven by, is the collateral sufficient to cover the investment? And then the next step is we want to look at the finance plan to make sure there's nothing going on in the finance plan that would impact the waterfall in a way that our collateral would be impacted and things would be deducted that we don't know about. So subject to the finance plan, one could agree to finance Asphalt City. So this next movie that I want to show you is a movie that we actually looked at for financing. It is called Knox Goes Away. It's a thriller directed by Michael Keaton, who also stars in the movie as the lead, together with Academy Award winner Al Pacino and James Marsden. And this was presented to us with an option to finance a portion of the budget as equity. And in this next study, we will review the steps to assess if an investment in this film is feasible. So in the first step, we'll look at the sales estimates. This is also a film sold by Film Nation. We'll look at the sales estimates, and we'll take a look at the fact that, you know, making sure really that the sales estimates do reflect 75% of the budget. For a budget like this, which is in the $30 million range, with A-level actors like that in a commercially viable genre, we should be seeing 75% of the budget reflected on the take level, on the estimates. As mentioned, the film Knox Goes Away, the budget is around 13 million. We're looking at the ask and the take. The ask gives us about 17,979,000 in international and 6.5 million for the US. The take will give us 9,750,000 for the international and 3.9 million for the US. My goal here is to establish that the international number, 9,750,000, is at least 75% of the budget, which is the case here. So we're going to go to the next step of the assessment. And again, in the next step, I want to see that at least 35% of the budget have been pre-sold, which is something that for a film today that is commercial should absolutely be possible. In fact, a lot more is pre-sold, and a lot more can be and actually was pre-sold when we looked at the film. Now these again are numbers that were adjusted for confidentiality reasons. These are not the actual numbers, but they're pretty close. So there was a US conversation to be had, or there could be a US conversation to be had, that is called a backstop, which means the US is not sold, but it is kind of reserved, if you want, for a certain buyer, that if you don't sell it at all, this buyer has a first right to exercise their right on getting the movie for this price. So this conversation here for the US turned out to be a $3.9 million payment. If no one would have bought the movie for the US, then this buyer would pay this number. What that means for me is that potentially this collateral is not available, because if it's already in conversation to be sold, then it's not available for the investor to really recoup from. At least, you know, not at this time, because I know someone's there who's willing to pay this, and that's great. But is it bankable at this point? Not really, because we can't take a promise to a bank. And for me, I have to look at it as a rights component that's no longer available. Now look at the other rights. We have Canada pre-sold. We have the United Kingdom pre-sold. Germany, Switzerland, Italy, Spain, Benelux is also pre-sold. We have Greece, Portugal, Russia, Ukraine, Hungary, Turkey, Brazil, Mexico, Japan, China, India. Altogether, if I would look at the pre-sales, including the US, we're looking at 98% of the budget, which is a lot. But I'm really just looking at, for my purposes and calculation assessment, I'm just looking at the international portion of it. The international portion, if I take out the US, reflects 67.5% of the budget, and the international loan would be $8,775,000. Together with the US, it gets to $12,740,000. So we look at both. We look at both scenarios because we have to take both scenarios into consideration. So we're going to, in this situation for this movie, keep both scenarios in mind. So as we're looking at the collateral and assess it in regards to what ROW, row territories, in short, unsold rights are still available that we can capitalize from, that we can look at, that are not being taken by the bank or by anyone else that is a lender in that sense, that would require them. So what territories are actually available for the investment and to be covered. So let's take a look at what exactly is left. So here are the exact pre-sales that were sold. And when I say exact, I say they are adjusted for confidentiality reasons. But pre-sales were made to Diamond Films Brazil. That's what we're assuming for this case study. To Arna Media for Russia. By the way, these are actual buyers. These are actual companies that buy for these territories. So you get to know some of them as we walk through these case studies. So again, Diamond Films for Brazil, Arna Media for Russia, Soy Kino for the Ukraine, Escad Elite for Switzerland, Tanya Alliances for Greece, Black Bear for the UK, DCM Film for Germany, Elevation Pictures for Canada, The Searchers for Belgium and Netherlands, which is Benelux in essence, Fine Films for Japan, Andrea Leone Films for Italy, Dia Planeta for Spain, E-Stars for China, Dimension Pictures for India, Price Audiovisuals for Portugal, the Swen Group for Mexico, TMC Films for Turkey, and Warner Brothers for Poland and Czechoslovakia. So altogether, the international rights that were sold are 67.5% and totaling $8,775,000. I have to consider the sales fee again of 7.5%, ending up being 7.5% of $8,775,000, totaling $658,125. The marketing fee again here is $150,000. The collection agent will charge 1%, which is $87,750, and the guild residuals will end up being $859,950 on this portion. The rest of the world, after I'm taking away these territories from my sales sheet, reflects $4,108,000. The sales fee on that is 12%. The US is going to be 3,900,000. The sales fee on that is 10%, and the comma is 1%. So altogether, I'm getting here to establish what is my total worldwide revenue net value for the film, that will tell me what is available net after all the fees have been deducted. So now in the next step, we establish the collateral value for the film and we run it against the investment amount we're asked to provide. And again, the question we need to answer are, is our investment feasible? And how much collateral is available to cover the investment and the premium? So we established that we have all these pre-sales, a lot of pre-sales, which is wonderful in theory. We have some fees that go against it, which is the sales fee, the marketing fee, the gilt residuals, and the comma. We then go to the rest of the world that is available after we took out all these territories from our sales sheet. We're going to deduct the full sales fee and the comma. We're not going to worry about residuals at this moment. They may or may not be applicable for this. We don't know because we haven't sold them yet, but we'll see. So I'm not running the residual against it. And then we have the US and charging those fees. So altogether, we have the net worldwide revenue that we have established after all the fees for the movie at $14,043,595,000. So the investment for the film would be 35% of the budget, which for a film that's 13 million would then be 4,550,000. And together with the premium of 20% on that investment, we would have to see a recoupment possible of $5,460,000. So if you look at the film in general, you have a film here, 75% of the budget was confirmed to be projected in the international sales column. That's click, yes, done, perfect. Double than what we were looking for of 35%, which is our minimum for pre-sales, was delivered in pre-sales, nearly 70%. So that's fantastic if you look at it from a risk point of view. So that is a check mark. And on the surface of it all, this film, has a great genre. It's an action thriller, has a great cast with Al Pacino, James Marsden, and Michael Keaton. So on the surface of it all, this film looks very commercial and has all the bells and whistles one would want to see when we invest in a film. So needless to say, this should be a movie that one should take serious when it comes to, potential investment and co-producing this with the producers. But again, the reality is that we have to answer the question, will there be enough available to cover $5,460,000, which is what we need to cover if we make that investment. So in order to figure out if I can make that investment, I have to run a finance plan. I have to see what is the bank loan component? What does the senior lender take in collateral? As we mentioned, we had international sales estimates at the take number of 9,750,000. We had pre-sales that were concluded at the value of 8,775,000. That excludes the US for now. We have international takes that are available after we take the territories out from the international marketplace that have been pre-sold of 4,108,000. So when we're looking at the bank loan, which is something we need to take into consideration because the bank is the very entity that would take collateral away from us as the equity investor. If they look at the pre-sales, including the US, which if that sale comes through would be the case, we're looking at 12,675,000 if we include the US. So the discount on that, if the bank applies a discount, would reflect 11,407,500 for the bank loan, as in this is what we believe for the bank, as in this is what we believe these contracts are worth. The down payment on these contracts, 20%, would be 2,535,000. That will be deducted, which leaves a pre-sale loan of 8,872,500. The interest reserve of 18% would be deducted, leaving a pre-sale loan of 7,275,450. So why did I include the US here? I include the US because the US is not available to me unless it's available to me, which it is not. if a conversation was had with someone about the US, even if it's a backstop conversation, meaning I, the US buyer, will buy the US in case no one else buys it, it still means the US is not available for the equity investor. So that's why I'm including it here in this loan structure. Now let's look at the gap. The gap loan is basically driven by what is available in the remaining take, and that was 4,108,000. So that gets us to a gross loan amount of 50% of that, which is 2,054,000. And if we're deducting the interest reserve and the loan and legal fees, the bank will lend 1,411,040. So the gross bank loan that will be paid to the bank is basically consisting of the pre-sale loan of 8,872,500 plus the gross gap loan of 2,055,000, and that gets us to a gross loan amount that would have to be repaid of 10,926,500. So I'm the equity investor. I have to look at what collateral pool does the bank take away from me in order to pay this loan off. What do they hold on to that I might not be able to get my hands on? So they will hold on to the pre-sales of 12,675,000, and they will hold on to the collateral value of 4,108,000 for the unsold rights. So that's what is the collateral that's assigned to them, and that's why they give a loan. Now, when I look at what's available to me, I'm looking at, well, they're banking the US, they're banking all the international pre-sales, and they're banking 50% of the international take, that is 4,108,000. So what is left for me, while the bank has this collateral assigned to them, they might not need it all. So what they definitely are not needing is the second part, the second half of the international remaining take. So of the 4,108,000, they are only lending 2,054,000, which means that I can look at that balance as my collateral. So I'm looking at 2,054,000 as a collateral that I could get my hands on. Now I have to look at that, of course, as a gross number. So I have to pay the sales fee of 12.5%. I have to pay the comma, and I'm now also paying here the residuals of 201,292 because I have to pay all this, right? So the total collateral value that is made available to me is 1,575,418, but the investment and premium that I'm asked to put into the movie is 5,460,000, which is basically comprised by the investment amount of 35% of the budget, which was 4,550,000, and the premium that I would like to make on the movie. So in short, I'm missing collateral in the amount of 3,884,582 in order to have my investment and my premium covered. So that's basically telling me here, while this movie on paper looks fantastic, there isn't enough collateral available to me to pay my investment back and pay my premium. So in short, looking at this amazing movie with this amazing cast, with the amazing projections and the amazing pre-sales, the investment in connection with the film did not make sense. And I have to look at that very closely whenever I look at a film where an investment is asked for. I have to look at, is the amount that is asked for going to be covered by the collateral that's available? And not only that, but can I also cover my premium? And that is not the case for this movie. So a film investment in this movie is not advisable. But then the question is, can it be optimized? What can be done? Well, one option is we take a look at what is available in the collateral and find maybe a path on adjusting the finance plan or the offer to finance in a way that the collateral that is there can cover that. So one option that could be available in a situation like this is we're financing less. We're basically going back to the producer and saying, we understand you need $5 million, but you don't have enough collateral to actually pay the $5 million back, which is a pretty logical feedback. And then to say, but we can offer you $1.3 million because you do have enough collateral to pay that back, including the pre-sales, the premiums. So then the producer can say, well, I'm either going to take the $1.3 million and I'm going to figure out where to take the rest, or maybe I do deferments, or maybe I do something else, but I'll take the money you offer me. Or they can say, we really want someone to give us, 35% of the budget and we're declining your offer. So either or is possible. But when, you work as someone who is investing in films or someone who wants to co-produce with other producers, you can always look at what do they ask for and what are you willing to invest. And those are conversations we pretty much have every day. But we walk through these assessment steps to have the conversation, to say to a producer, we understand you need this, but you don't have enough to cover this. So here's what we would offer. And that's something that becomes very clear to anyone and to you as well if you're thinking about your own films, what to ask an investor to give you, and also when you work with other producers on their films in regards to what you should be investing. And these conversations are extremely important because they will dictate what makes sense for an investment or what doesn't make sense for an investment. So if you go out with your project that is great and fantastic and has all the bells and whistles and ticks all the boxes, but you ask an investor to give you more money than what you can actually, what you actually have to pay them back with, then the investor is likely going to decline. And you can massage your ask, your price, by looking into exactly what you have available in collateral and by asking the right question, by asking for an amount that can actually be paid back based on the collateral that you have still available for your film. So here are two projects that we looked at in regards to investments and assessing an investment. And if you do have any questions about this, please feel free to reach out. And again, we looked at various options. We included SAG, we left it out in certain areas, but I wanted you to just overall see and get a feeling for what it will take in order to pay an investment back, even if you have a movie that on the surface fulfills your investment criteria. There are more things to look at than just the investment criteria.